Welcome, everybody, to the show. Joining us is our usual co-host and fellow traveler, Dancing Dan, the Dancing Man, who's having a special hair day, as we can all see. And our special guest, Uwe Eickart of Academy Games, Ohio born and bred. Is,
I want to say something. I want to say something about Uwe. And I'm not flexing my homosexual tendencies here. I'm just looking at the specimen of a man that he is.
We don't judge here on this show, Dan. As you know, Dan, we better not.
Saying that, I'm going to have to zip up my zipper.
You know that if I were to be reincarnated again, I think I want to be Uwe.
I mean, I'm pretty sure there's already a restraining order out for you in Ohio anyway, Dan.
I mean, Jesus, look at the guy. Uwe, how old are you? 85, 90? Look at you.
You know what, Dan? I've got 5 personalities in me already, so I'll take another one in.
Is this new one not creeped out by Dan?
Damn, I just poked myself.
Oh, dear. That sounds like another thing we're not judging you for, Dan.
No, with a toothpick.
It's all good. Tonight's topic, of course, is hookers and blow. But aside from that, we're going to talk about what appeals to us in a war game when we go to a store or visit an online shop and we look around at the various games available. What jumps out at us? I think besides like history and interest in the topic, because I mean, for me, that's always like criteria number one. If I'm super interested in the topic, I'll buy a bunch of games about it. But if I'm not, then I'm probably not looking at that game, regardless of how attractive or renowned it is. So you know, what are those attractive features that attract war gamers to a specific war game? Is it the art? Is it the graphics? Is it some particular approach? Is that it puts you in the shoes of the historical commander? Is it verisimilitude of simulation? What do you think, Uwe?
I think Dan looks the guy like the boss from Dilbert right now.
But, I thought we were going to talk about Uwe.
We can talk about Uwe, but we're gonna learn about Uwe by exploring his thoughts on these important matters.
Exactly, Duce. You're beginning to look like the little monkeys in Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, little monkeys is pretty much what I was thinking too.
Ardy. So the question was, about a game. What For me, a war game is much more about the engine and the gameplay than on the topic. Because if I'm interested in the topic, I probably have some good games in it already. But if there's a really good engine out there that really looks enticing, I don't care what theater or what it is, because I'll probably learn something about it and like it. But if the war game, if the engine, everything to me is about the engine, the gameplay. Yeah, it's the overall feel. Thank you.
It's funny. I just interviewed Mark Herman, and that's exactly what he said.
I watched that interview, and I copied exactly. I plagiarized it.
Hold on, I'm taking notes.
That's exactly what he said.
That does sound like a designer perspective.
It's all about technique to these guys. These guys don't give a shit about topic.
Well, so some of them will tell you something different. I think Volko might tell you something different, actually. I could be wrong about that, and if Volko would like to come on, I'm sure we would be delighted to have Volko on again. But, I mean, I feel like he, without remembering this context of that specific conversation, I mean, he might feel differently. I can think of some others who might feel differently. I think I feel differently, but I'm not a designer, right? I have never gotten a game design beyond the stage of our war game design anyway, beyond the stage of, hey, this would be neat. And just jotting down some notes, and then I walk away and never touch it again. So
it's funny.
What I think what Mark and I think also Volko would agree with is that it's by the engine is a game you can put almost any blanket over a good engine. And the engine is gameplay. What is important to you as a gamer? What do you like? And especially as designers, what do we like and what are we going for? What are we trying to get the players to feel? What experience do we want them to have, et cetera, et cetera? And that changes greatly from designer to designer and from player to player. So it's the engine, and then you can put any blanket over it. So for me, It's the engine. And I was at a very interesting conference that Sid Meier's was giving from Civilization. We were talking about this exact topic. I said, man, how did you build this great game, the Civilization, that you made the engine so perfect for this? And it says, no, we designed the engine first, and then we put the blankets over them. So I think that's why when I say, and Mark may say, it's the engine, the gameplay, that's an important part to us. That's it, because we can put any topic over it. If you have a good engine, you're going to have a good game with almost any topic with slight modifications. If you have a shitty engine, the game's going to be shitty no matter how much work you put into the topic.
Okay, so Uwe, let me ask you, marketing-wise, businessman-wise, you got a great engine, okay? What are you going to do? Like, you're thinking you want to make cash on this. Obviously, you're a businessman. What are you gonna slap on top of it in terms of flavor?
Yes, we do look, if we have a good engine, to go after flavors that we know will sell. If it's also something we'll have fun designing. For example, we were thinking, I would love to do a game about, let's say, the 30 Years' War, which to me is just phenomenal. And don't put down the Pinto, damn it. But then you have to look at it and say, if we have a new game, for example, with a good engine, are we going to do some obscure battle, or are we going to do samurai? Well, normally it's a done deal. You're going to make it about samurai, because samurai, everybody loves samurai, but who the hell knows anything about the 30 Years' War of your average consumer or even a lot of war gamers? So
Uwe, why the hell even do a war game with a good engine? Screw war games, make money.
It's called Stellaris, my friend. So
which raises an interesting question, because in that case you're actually developing from the blanket. You got the blanket in the mail, right? So you're developing underlying mechanics, presumably, to try and emulate the feel that one gets when playing the computer game, which incidentally I've played quite a lot of.
It's a different feel, but we're trying to get the same type of overall experience. Because of course, when you're playing the video game like Stellaris, we took a lot of our war game, our AI, a lot of our mechanics that we have in games and development with our phase boards and everything like that. So what we took with our war games, which we also have in development, and then you're 100% right. Why do this? We took that and we found a lot of people don't want to play Germans against Russians or Americans against Taliban. So if you take that same game, the same exact game, and make it dwarves versus elves, boom, you're going to sell 20 times more games. That's true. But do we want to do that? No, unless we really like the topic and subject also.
Ardy, look at Mark McNair's question.
What, this one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have concerns about my back picking up the Stellaris box personally, from looking at the measurements on it. I'm like, man, I'm not sure I have a table big enough to fit the box, let alone the game. So I mean that's a concern, right? Is this going to be bigger or smaller than the Ogre box from the Ogre Kickstarter?
Seriously?
It's going to be much more. It's much smaller. It's
okay. Because that's the size of a small child, and I have photographic evidence to prove that.
Well, here are the boxes. So it's here's the base game, and it's going to be deeper, of course, because we need to have so people can save from era to era, and then these are the two the expansions to it that the Kickstarter supporters are getting.
Uwe, what makes you so confident with that game?
What this game is, a lot of people who
300 hours into the video game is what makes me pretty confident.
Number one, it is a phenomenal game from the standpoint of what it does, and it has an incredible following. Number one. Number two, we are all fans of the game. We love the game, But the problem is when people play the video game, it's a learning curve. But you have the beautiful visuals coming in from a computer screen, the sounds, the motions, which you don't have in a board game. So we need to take Stellaris, this incredible 4X game, and have a new player playing it in 10 minutes and having fun and understanding what they're doing.
In 10 minutes, Uwe?
In 10 minutes. And how
Okay, that doesn't happen when playing the video game. But they're
Exactly.
playing within 10 minutes, but they have no idea what they're doing.
Exactly. And that's where we have the benefit of taking the phases, everything that you're doing in the Stellaris game, we built those into the 4X components: the explore, the expand, the exploit, and the no exterminate, the exopolitics. And we take these, and each board has a beginner side, which is only for beginners, new eras, new empires coming in. And it says, you want to explore. Here, if you want to do this at the top, what do you have to do of the resource you have to do it? Pay them. Everybody does it simultaneously. Pay it. And then when it's your turn, you execute. Very simple. So beginners can take all this complexity and start playing. Now, all the details, all the things that come in with Stellaris are then you take in as a player over time as you're playing. Because now you can play the game in 2 hours. It's over. Era's over. But the average players are going to play the campaign where they're keeping their empires over 5 to 7 eras so that they can ascend. Or the crisis bosses are coming every 4 eras and just destroying people, but they go after the most biggest ones. So as you're going, you're not worrying about your legacies or a lot of your ethics and things that are so important to the game because you're a new player. You don't care yet because it is introduced to you slowly as you're expanding. And that's the beauty of the game. And that's what we're working on so hard.
Uwe, you said the easier game, you can get it, you can do it in 2 hours.
Yes.
Now, for some reason, Stellaris sounds to me like it's a ongoing thing.
If you want it to be, and that's exactly where we're doing it. So if I'm playing Art and I or John here Longshore, who we give him an empire that's led by Napoleon, and
Space Napoleon, of course.
Space Napoleon, of course. And we are playing, and we've been playing 2 or 3 eras. We're having a great time, and then Duce, you come in and want to play. Boom. You can play. You're playing a first era. You're playing very simple. Only so much you can do, but you can still win that game, that 2-hour era game, get all the benefits of it because you only have to get one objective, and it's only an era 1 objective. Whereas people who are in era 3 or 4 need to get 3 or 4 objectives. But depending on what type of culture they've built, they may be a benevolent society, and they're helping you out get to your goals. And you're going, what a great guy Uwe is. He's helping me out, even though I'm a beginner. And guess what? My goals, because of the way my society is to help you out.
I believe that's a direct quote from the rule book. It's where it says, what a great guy Uwe is.
So anyway, what I'm trying to get is when you're designing, the engines are so key. So I love Napoleonics also. We actually have 2 Napoleonic games in development right now, a brand new series of games. And
is either of them on the 1809 Danube Valley campaign?
I'm sorry?
Is either of them on the 1809 Danube Valley campaign?
We are doing, one is the full campaign. It's from a campaign standpoint, and one is more individual battles.
Okay, because I have a committee that is complaining about the lack of games on that particular campaign. So One True Phlegm, thank you so much for the super chat. Much appreciated. So, no, but I'd be very interested in seeing what you folks have to say about Napoleonics, actually. So, will we be seeing those this year? Let me ask that question.
I want to know more about the Stellaris thing. Uwe, the Stellaris thing, is this, I want to do the campaign. I want to go a whole hog. I want to do the campaign. Is this one of those things like an Ardy monster game where you leave it on the table for 5 months type thing?
No. That's why this box is so deep, because you're only, when you're playing, you can even see games or pictures that were put on when we were playing it at Gen Con every thing with people. You're only on average having 5 to 6 star systems, and these star systems then are attached to center when you attach the center of the universe, because beginners are on their own, so they don't have to worry about other people also, because they're this civilization that's developing on the fringe of some galaxy, and then they're trying to connect to the galaxy. So again, slowly bringing new players in. So it is not our goal in this game, and as a designer, we want you to be having fun in 10 minutes. We don't want exemption rules. We want things that slowly build up. So you know how to play the base game, you're feeling comfortable, and then a new thing comes at you. That, to me, is a good game design. That's what I look in other games, staying on topic here. So it's very, very important. Same like our Conflict of Heroes. You play Conflict of Heroes, we did it like the old squad leader. You learn how to move and fire infantry. Now, in the next game, the France 1940 coming out, we switched around. Then you add tanks, which are the exact same rules, except blue fires against blue or red against red. Again, no exemptions. Then we start going in combined arms, combined movements. Then we bring in artillery. So you're playing missions, playing game, learning like Squad Leader did. And that's what I love about a more complicated, involved game like these. But a lot of these war games now coming out are so beautifully designed because, which I like, I want to have interaction with people. I don't want the game to be surrounded around exemption rules and a lot of rules. I want it to be about my interaction with Ardy or you, Duce.
I mean, that's why we play analog games as opposed to video games, right? So
that was a question that I asked Mark Herman. But you're a businessman, Uwe. You got reason. You know what I'm saying? Why are you, as we're getting older, we're getting simpler in design and in mechanics? But is that a
we talked about
wait, will you wait? But Uwe, are you doing this because you don't want to deal with all these goddamn rules that are like this, or you're creating something with Gunther, right? Gunther's involved in that stuff.
Gunther, yeah.
Whatever. Gunther.
So what Dan's trying to ask is, are you designing these games for old people?
No, what I'm saying is, are you designing these games, and smartly so that they're appealing to grognards, they're appealing to new people at the same time, which is genius as far as I'm concerned. And is it a business model of yours?
No, it's games in general. Rules are becoming more sophisticated. Why the hell do I make you roll a die and look up a chart when I can put graphics and numbers and symbols on the different die faces that give you the same thing? Why would I have all these exemption rules that you have to memorize if instead I can say, here's this card, this happens. If you do this, pull this counter out. It has a new symbol on it, so you don't have to memorize it.
Because all these grognards want it, like Ardy. Ardy wants it.
Yeah, but I mean, so just from a demographic standpoint, I don't know that we grognards are pulling in all that much new business, right? I mean, it's something that let's take our super popular war game, like Advanced Squad Leader, right? Just to pull that out of thin air. I mean, how many? What's the audience of people playing ASL right now versus the number of people playing Stellaris, the video game, right? Just it's not Elden Ring where it sold, I don't know how many tens of millions of copies, right? It's not like one of the top selling video games of the year or anything like that. It's a successful kind of middle of the road success and fairly noodly, I might add, computer strategy game. But the audience is vastly larger than for any specific tabletop war game, right? So
I agree.
There's a lot of potential there to expand the audience, right? And as far as I'm concerned, if we can get somebody to play Uwe's new shiny Stellaris, next stop Case Blue, right?
It's funny that you mentioned this because, again, all these games overlap, and I cannot say what incredible war game we are working on right now that is taking a lot of the foundation that we've done with Stellaris and is going to be a historical World War II modern war game.
Tell us.
Okay, well, I was going to ask you could at least give us the topic. World War II, so... I mean, everybody loves World War II, right? I mean, everybody with an interest in historical topics, I think, has some base of knowledge. I mean, even if you don't, you've probably still seen Saving Private Ryan and maybe The Longest Day and maybe some worse movies about World War II. So it's easy to cash in on that, right? As a publisher, you could take people's existing knowledge base and kind of build from there. Whereas if you're talking about 30 Years' War, I don't know what we believe the 30 Years' War was all about here in Ohio, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't about Protestantism versus Catholics in Germany. So,
Uwe, we were friends once in 42. I'm Italian, you're German. Come on, tell me something.
The reason why people love World War II, because it's so easy. You have the evil Germans against the really good Russians. So that's why people...
Obviously.
I can start seeing a shift in game perspectives going on here in the future.
I guess that's off topic, but I mean that's a topic worth exploring, right? As a sort of historical cleanliness with which we view World War II. But that's unless it's a solitaire game, somebody's got to play that bad guy too, right? And then how do they feel about that? Maybe they don't care. Maybe they think it's something that they're just not interested in answering the question, which I frankly think is a common response to that. But somebody's got to be the bad guy, and World War II has a clearer set of bad guys than a lot of other conflicts necessarily do.
Yeah.
Uwe, is Stellaris able to be played solo?
No.
Okay.
But going back, he's on Stellaris, man. You're hooked on Stellaris. But and that's good. I'm gonna have to take care of you, Duce. But where you're coming from is very, very interesting from the standpoint of with the good and bad. We're going through right now. When is the time correct to start exploring the current war going on? And if you do have it, and this is a discussion we just had this morning and yesterday, would people want to feel comfortable and want to play the Russians at this stage in the game? And when is too early and too late in playing
But
a game
it would be hypothetical at this point.
No, I'm not saying we. Let's just suppose I were looking at doing a game like that. I would try to do everything that has happened in the war so far. It's like I've got this game this book on the Civil War sitting over there that was published in 1863, and they went through the war so far, analyzed, and said, we expect it to be over at the end of the year. And it's an original edition from 1863, and I love reading that book because it gives you perspective of now. But it's Steve. Oh my goodness, how do you say that name?
Stigler.
What are you talking about? How do you say that name? Stigler.
I thought it was some Nordic name that's where you don't pronounce half of the letters.
He's a Stigler for the details.
Okay. Come on, he's whatever.
I mean, Mike. So pretty early on, well into this whole thing started in February of 2022, and I know that because it happened when we were playing war games at Winterfest. And within probably 60 days, there was talk of games coming out about the current conflict in the Ukraine, and a lot of people, including myself, had reservations about that just because of the level of information that's available right now. It's what are we getting? Doing our order of battle research from Twitter? I mean. I'm just not sure where whatever the word I'm trying to say. I'm just not sure we have the depth of information to make a sensible game on a topic at this point. And maybe we won't for years.
I tell you what, you'd be surprised. Die Quellen, the English word for Quellen.
I like
the resources out there ready of analysis of it, even down to the battalion level, that the Russians and the Ukrainians had right before battles. Now, you don't know in the battles exactly who took part, but where people, I think, there are websites out there that every single military movement done by every major power, except maybe China, people have phones, they click, and it's uploaded, and it's compiled.
That's true. I mean, boy, that would be a lot of work to aggregate all that.
It's already available.
Yeah, I mean, hey, here's a Ukrainian farmer who stole a Russian tank and is driving away with it behind his tractor. I mean, that's on the internet somewhere, right? Yeah. So in that sense, yeah, but well, and it might have to be a game designer that would put that kind of source of information together and kind of interpret it in the context of the operations that are actually going on. That sounds like a lot of work to me.
And you know what, Uwe, maybe you didn't think about this, but you're way ahead of me in thinking about anything. But if you so happen to put out a game like that, and God forbid the war goes on for many, many more years, think of all the expansions.
Yeah, that's true. You can have an expansion for every Paradox expansion.
Think of all the
you've got at least 15 years of expansion. I think the original game originally came out in 2016. That sounds right. And they've done at least 15 expansions for it so far.
Well, we couldn't do tonight. If we do something like that, we would. Well, I'm not going to go any further. Anyway, so that is going back to the original topic with war games and all. Yeah, and John Prados did incredible. I mean, their current events and everything were phenomenal at the time what they were putting out. And I wish, they're still putting stuff out like that with modern game design. Again, I think in those days we didn't have the computers and everything, and a lot of games were just rushed, and they were just, in hindsight, it's like some of the old TV shows and movies, they've aged. And that's why I think modern game design is so much better than games 20, 30 years ago in general.
I agree with you.
So actually, I want to touch on a point that Tony's making here. So, and maybe phrase it slightly more gently, although I think Tony means it in a polite way. So
the source.
One of the complaints that we hear all the time, but for some reason I'm the complaint department. People complain to me about this stuff, and I'm not sure why, is that games are too expensive, right? And then we see Kickstarters with $100, $150, $200 price tags, all this fancy stuff and things like that. So of what importance is should we kind of commit to the idea that games are going to be expensive, and if you really want a game, you should really get the deluxe package, which necessarily means you're going to have to invest some money into it? Or is there a place in the sort of broader market for, and I'm talking about war games specifically here, for inexpensive, easy point of entry games?
I don't like inexpensive in point of games because, I mean, our games are selling between $80 and $100, and we reprint every single one of our games at least once or twice every year. We don't have
the average price.
We don't have a Conflict of Heroes game that hasn't sold between at least 30 and 60,000 copies.
Jesus!
It's the price is not it. If you have good components, good games, and good gameplay, it's going to cost money. People who are trying to make their game and keep it under $30 or $40, to me, I get nothing out of that. And most war gamers are usually educated. They like history. They have good jobs. They have money. So they're going to pay $80 to $100 to $120 for a game.
But that's the average. That's the average cost today, man.
Well, yeah, and you go out to dinner with a group of people to a nice restaurant wherever.
And it's $300. Boom.
You're almost there. So to me, I always, even with designers and talk about other people, what do I want? I want a beautiful game. I want a game that I'm just going, and I don't want to insult people, but that's just the way I am. There are so many. The beauty of a person inside is what counts. Like you meet, if I'm dating and I meet a woman, it's what she has inside that counts. If you have a really beautiful woman who has the same insides as a really ugly woman, what are you going to go for? you're going to go for the looks.
Uwe,
You have to have the substance. So
Mark Herman said he doesn't do games for other people. He does games for himself, and that's the way it should be.
Well, I mean, I think a lot of designers are going to probably take that position because let's face it, for a lot of designers, this is not exactly a big money enterprise, right? I mean, if we're limiting, Uwe's going to be the outlier here because he's had big success with a lot of games with crossover appeal. But a lot of people in like the core wargaming space, which frankly is where I'd put Mark most of the time, he's not making a living off of this. So somebody who is making a living off of this is going to have a different perspective than that.
Yeah, we do have to worry about that it sells. And, it's the games we're looking at now, even if we want to get them into the mass market and stuff like that, our Punic Wars coming out is going to have little miniatures because that's going to hit a certain market. The same in our Birth of America series, the Vietnam game is going to have cubes because the people are going to buy a Vietnam war game versus in the same series of games, a Punic War game with Romans against Carthaginians. One needs miniatures. Vikings needs miniatures. 1775, we didn't do miniatures. Now we're going to come out with them because there's some demand. But, it's a balance. It's a balance. You have to go. And actually, the miniatures cost me the same as stupid little wooden cubes.
Seriously.
Yeah. The wood nowadays is so expensive. It's almost cheaper to mold miniatures than it's to make little stupid wooden cubes.
Why don't you make them out of plastic?
Well, that's what the cubes out of plastic?
Yeah.
Damn, I never thought of that.
10%, Uwe. 10%.
If I'm going to make a plastic cube, I might as well make a plastic miniature.
That's
true.
I
guess you're right.
I mean, at that point.
But that's, so going back to the point we're on, what kind of war games do we like to play and all that? And as game design changes and develops, I think you're able to bring in so much more complication, subtleties without changing the beauty of game. One of my favorite Duce, what you like, Imperial Assault. I think that's what it was called, Imperial Assault.
Star Wars.
The Star Wars game?
Star Wars. What they did with their dice, meaning if you have a sniper guy, you're using that sniper die and you roll and it shows you what range that roll came in and then the results of that roll. Versus if you're a shotgun guy, you may have a guy who's 4 hexes away and you're shooting, you get a great hit, but it's out of range. It's all on the die. It's no charts. To me, that was such an eye-opener of a game that was using such a great mechanic that
who's the designer?
I don't know. I don't follow designers.
I believe it was designed by a corporation. I'm being flippant. I have no idea. But I mean, I would imagine, when you look at the game like that World of Warcraft game that got nominated for CSR this year, they had like 7 designers that were credited. So I wouldn't surprise me if, and this is not a statement as to whether Imperial Assault is any good or not. I have no idea. But
designers for Imperial Assault were Justin Companion, Corey.
Sounds Italian.
Konietzka. They probably Czech, and Jonathan Ying. So
there you go.
Those are the 3 designers. Fantasy Flight Games did it. So,
okay.
So they did it, and it's incredible. So little things like that. That's what I'm saying is.
Well, I mean, there's no question that there's like more tools in the designer toolbox nowadays than we used to have, and part of that is like legitimately new ideas that people have come up with, and part of it is just willingness to borrow from other kinds of games, of which there are a bunch, right? The video games and card games and role-playing games and all these things have contributed little bits and bobs inside the wargaming space over the last couple of years. I mean, Ted Racer, who, as far as I'm aware, is not a D&D player, is working on what he describes as a role-playing game about Napoleon, which sounds awesome, and which I disagree with Ted. It's not a role-playing game, but it sounds really neat.
The best artists, they steal and they make it their own, period.
So this is a good question. Strike of the Eagle. I've heard a lot of great things about Strike of the Eagle. Is there another game in that series coming down the pipe at some point?
It's been done and sitting there for 3 years now. Strike of the Eagle. It's our the Korean War. It's When Whales Fight. I've talked about it for quite a while. It is done. It's the most incredible Korean War game I've been a part of. Brian Asklev is the main designer of it. He took from what we did with Strike of the Eagle and did the campaign. And it is, I've read so many books that I have on the Korean War, and just playing the first campaign, I learned more about the subtleties. But it's been 3 years sitting on my desk.
Uwe, 3 years. That's money going like this.
And people bitch at me, yes. But my thing is what we're developing with our lock and key cards, like for Stellaris, or what we're doing with our solo wargaming, our upcoming solo Conflict of Heroes.
Oh, you're making Stigler mad now.
It's
talking about appealing to those dirty solo players.
Yes, but the lock and keys, where in past games it was always you get a historical action, you play that historical action, you have the benefit, then boom, and you continue with the game. Your decision was, do I want to do the historical action on this card, or do I want to use it for a bonus or whatever? But to me, that is, again, old school. So now it has to be, if I'm going to do this historical action, meaning like in Korea, that I want to initiate a nuclear strike, then, of course, the historical action is, oh, you're going to lose this and this and this, boom, and that's how games work. The way I'm redesigning this part is, if you're doing that, that opens up a lockup here where all these keys, all of a sudden Japan isn't going to be sending supplies anymore, allowing American supplies to go through. So all of a sudden for the rest of the game, unless other things happen, the Japanese American supplies into the Korean Peninsula are going to be in great danger of too much blockage and everything, because they've now totally lost Japan for putting out a nuclear bomb. So like in Strike of the Eagle, where we had these historical things, and many games have this, you do it, it's over. You got the units, you paid the money, you got extra, whatever. But that's not how it should be. If you make a decision, you need that legacy that we're putting in Stellaris and other games that were in design. So that's why it's been sitting there 3 years, because it needs my personal attention to really design this and get it in. So Brian Asklev did a really great job. He gave us all these intercombined logic combinations. If this happens, yes, no, how they all correlate. So he's helped me with that. But now we've got to get that subtlety. Yeah, I lost a lot of money. We've sold already 10, 15,000 copies of that game. But this is a designer again. I would rather have a game that I look back and go, that was incredible, and do it, because I've learned from Conflict of Heroes, we had the first edition, second edition, third edition.
I was just about to say that.
I should learn, put the damn game out, and then put a second design edition in. But this second edition it's already in my head, so I have to put it out. So yeah, it's been sitting 3 years. Poor Brian, he's been pulling his hair. Let's get this out. But it's going to be, the incredible design he's done needs to be better. So that's, again, another thing how game design is evolving.
I think somebody has asked you this question every time you've come on, by the way. Thanks, William Aarons. Much appreciated. I think Williams, I think the experience William's describing is something you mentioned, Uwe, and that I think a lot of us are in, just kind of better shape right now. We're grown up. If we had kids, they're gone. We can spend a little bit of money on fun stuff now. And William is adorable when he says he can afford to spend $50 to $100 on a game. I spent more than that today on games that came out 30 years ago. So, but that, those games that you decided you needed and spend that money on aren't even necessarily the new games. We'll talk about that later. But you mentioned something that I found very interesting. And I was going to ask about this before with Stellaris, actually. You mentioned the legacy games. So it sounds like you have the ability, even if you're not like ruining your components, as with the, some of the legacy stuff. But we've already now seen with David Thompson's Undaunted Stalingrad that you can have that sort of legacy experience and have a persistent game without necessarily requiring you to throw the components away when you're done. So was that an inspiration for Stellaris? It sounds like it has something like that mechanism of persistence.
we call it infinite legacy, which means you can play it over and over again. Every decision you make. And if you haven't seen some of our things, the screen that we've done on there, we spent a lot of time, effort on that. It's a 7-layer player screen. And that 7-layer allows you to see cards your way. On top, you're putting ethics, you're putting decisions you made and explorations that other people don't know what your decisions were. You could have wiped out a whole race and nobody knows about it. But when you decide to do that, that card will go on top with a lock. If there was another space race out there and they have that key that you're meeting them, and that key unlocks because they were space-based at the time, they then find out about what you did, which ripples and gives you all kinds of bad effects. Or you're coming in and you're a very militaristic, bird-like race, and all of a sudden your opponents are putting a political factions and their peaceniks in there that are trying to disrupt, or they're building up secretly without you even knowing it, your underground mafia and screwing around with your economy when you think it's this happening and you're actually doing it to them. So that's where the legacy comes in. You're making decisions that'll ripple forward. What was that last question? It went away so fast.
Oh, this was hookers and blow, actually. So the other one was William talking about being able to afford games regardless of if we look at I think Brant mentioned Up's thread here a little bit. Between like 1982 and today, it's 40-year difference. I mean it's a big difference, right? That $18 game that you bought in 1982 is probably going to cost $100 now.
Yeah, but how much was $18 then compared to $100 now?
Well, so there's like a couple of axes to look at that, right? I mean, on the one hand, in 1982, I was 11 years old, and I had $5, and that was it, right? Ever. And on the other hand, you looked at the component quality you were getting for that $15 or $18 Avalon Hill game. And I mean, it's very difficult to try and compare that to what we see nowadays, where everything's full color, everything's mounted, everything's high quality. I'm not talking about tabletop war games, which in many ways are quite retrograde by these standards. At least,
man, when I had $5 and I was 11 years old, I bought 3 joints for $5.
Man, I didn't even know what that was at that age. So
I just went on the internet and said, what was the value of $20 in 82? What would be today? It says $20 in 1982 is equivalent in purchasing power today of $61.51.
There you go. And you can't, it's hard to find. There's some games floating around out there for $60, but their numbers are dwindling.
Uwe, I wanted to ask you something about the Korean game and your decision to hold on, to shelve it, okay, and lose loads of money. Now, when you make a decision like that, it's a great game, but you got a gut feeling it's got to be better. Are there options when you say it's got to be better, or you just have a feeling and it's going to come one day?
No, I know what I want to do, and that's where I have to just pull the trigger. But when we have another incredible game, the Guderian's Harvest, which is based on Jim Dunnigan's Panzer Group of Guderian, where we took it totally modernized. We talked with Jim. He says, go do what you guys want, And we took this game and just turned it on its head. And it is now, it's incredible. It's my favorite war game I'm playing right now. And we worked on that now already 3.5, 4 years. And it's gone through 4 iterations. But now I'm happy finally. Now it's going to be published soon. And that game is a first in several games. So the second game being developed is Anzio. And all these games based on this idea we had with Jim Dunnigan, modernized, and then it kept morphing into this war game now that is, it's going to surprise people.
I'd be very interested to see that product as well. So
get that out. Sounds very old school.
And it's been sitting there 4 years. I mean, our game here, the Western Twilight, is now all done. It's going to be going to the printer soon. and then we're going to do a pre-order. This is, Twilight Struggle and Ticket to Ride combined together. I say that sarcastically.
Okay.
I hope so.
I love Twilight Struggle, and a lot of people feel very intimidated by it. So we took pre-World War I, and now you're going for control of different nations, but it's through military, financial, diplomatic. It's a Euro game, but it's got that same base feel that I love in Twilight Struggle, but I also love playing Ticket to Ride.
Yeah.
So we made it where it really is. We were, a lot of people who were maybe listening here saw it also being played in at Gen Con, and that table never was empty. It was always being played. So if anybody's going to PresCon, we're going to have finished copies of it there. You can play it and demoing it there at PresCon.
So let's get this out of the way. Where is Stellaris in the production pipeline? When can people expect to actually start seeing it?
I thought we were talking about war games and all that. So
well, we are, but I'm gonna get asked this like tomorrow, and I'll be like, I don't know, you should ask this when Uwe was on. So I might as well ask right now.
Everything that we're pushing for is that it leaves the printer in May, because we got a big conventions. We got to have them at the conventions, and to have them at the conventions, they have to be shipped out already through Kickstarter. So we're under hard timelines. And what people don't understand, with such a popular game such as Stellaris, we're going to, again, make some changes last month with Fallen Empire AI. Again, you don't have to worry about Fallen Empires, Duce, when you're a new player. But sometimes you're a player and you don't like your empire anymore. You say, I quit, like in the game. Guess what? In the board game, the empire, everything you did stays and influences it still. Because Fallen, how do you bring that in? And how do you bring the AI of what it's doing and what's going to screw around with people? So it's another thing we added. And someone made a good comment. When you have a game that's now well over $3 million in support, we're at like 3.1, something like that.
Jesus.
It's
that's a lot of pressure.
Well, no, but we have the money and the time and the resources where we don't have to rush the game and get it out. It's I don't know if I can share my screen.
Now, what about the
you should be able to click present at the bottom.
Yeah.
And then you'll pick share screen, and then you'll be able to pick a monitor or a specific application window.
So I don't know if you can see it.
But Uwe, you got the license from those guys who made Stellaris. Is there not a deadline?
They're so on board with everything we're doing. They're loving it. They see we're a little different. We have everything on teamwork. Every task, every project, every piece of art that people are doing are tasks. They're in teamwork. It's part of our Gantt chart. You see everything everybody's doing. So we're a little different than other publishers in that they can see everything and they know what's happening. So yes, we're pushing off, and I agree, we're not very good at doing our updates. And unfortunately, I told people I could hire a guy who's out there always pumping out marketing stuff, or I can hire people to help us with the development, with the artwork and all that. So we're going that route.
Yeah.
That's good and bad. But anyway, so you can see, it's at 3,064,000, And
that's awesome. Congratulations.
It's that, but what people said, and where our problem is we have the resource to get more people in, and we keep on making the game more subtle and even better and better and better. All these things, we had exemption rules 4 or 5 months ago that we've designed out now and built so it's even more streamlined and easy. So what Gunta's doing, this team, is phenomenal. So again, everybody bitches and a game is shitty if you're delaying it. But I'd rather have a delayed game that's shitty till it comes out than come out with a game quickly that's shitty forever.
Yeah, you're just lost. And the influence.
We're not even going to talk about examples.
So the influence that you went for was Twilight Imperium in that game. Like, did you look at Twilight Imperium and say we're gonna model it like this, or
No,
because
no,
I don't
no, no, we don't
know
want, no, we don't want Twilight Imperium at all. No.
no, because I don't even know Stellaris, the video game.
Oh, no. Twilight Imperium is a great game. But no, I would never want to do a game like that. That's an 8-hour slugfest. And this game is totally different. This is not about war and slug. This is about subtlety, about getting along with other races, screwing around with other races, threatening them, diplomacy, doing worker strikes, trying to change their religion, sending out immediate droids that get in their brains. And there's hundreds of storylines in there that'll affect the game. No, this is like playing D&D in a war game in 2 hours. And then you decide, let's get together again in a week or two and continue and play another era. And
I think that sounds pretty cool.
I know that sounds
idea
pretty cool.
Where you have this sort of persistence without necessarily having to leave the thing set up the whole time. I think I'm very interested in seeing that.
So, Uwe, the replayability of something like this is endless.
Oh, yeah, it is. We don't think, and we say no two groups will ever play the same thing. And we're going to have blogs where people are telling their stories and all, because it is going to be, there are so many thousands of different ways it can go. And with such a brand, it's pretty phenomenal.
I got several people asking now here, actually, will there be Vassal and or Tabletop Simulator modules, which does sound ironic, right?
We had the Vassal for people to play test, but the game's so changing so quickly. And realize we're working with a big studio, so we can't just throw out art or anything like that. So we're very, very constrained in our campaign parameters that we have, So we have to stay within these parameters and just can't throw anything out. So we took a lot of heat for it, but people have to understand this is not just some game we're putting out. This is Stellaris.
Yes.
And everything we put out with Stellaris has to help the Stellaris brand. And this board game, and where they're so happy about, is from their playing and everything, it actually builds on the video game and builds the video game. So a lot of those little stories you have in the video game, here's a space, or the robot crisis or whatever coming in, it comes and you try to fight it. We can develop the backstories, and you have the whole backstories going on, and so we're having so much fun with this. So
why does Isaac Asimov come to mind? Yes, no?
Oh, I love it. Harry Seldon is my hero. So
did you watch the show?
No, I did not.
Oh, it's bad.
There was a movie done?
No, Apple TV did a 8 or 10 episode series, 6 to 8, 10, I don't know, series. It's getting a season 2. It's bad.
Oh, really? Oh, bummer, because it's one of the best. I love
it's well cast. The cast is great. They hired Jared Harris to be Harry Seldon, which is a great choice, I thought. And the rest of the cast is very good too. And they all get let down. So I'm sorry to report that.
Ardy, I wanted to ask you something. Stellaris. Yes. You've played Stellaris, the video game, right?
Yeah.
Now, is this the type of game that I could get into because it's sci-fi, or are there too many detailed things to happen?
That's a great question, actually, and it's interesting, actually, that Paradox has licensed not only Uwe to do Stellaris, but licensed some other group to do Europa Universalis, right? Which, of course, started as a board game, became a computer game, and now it's becoming a board game again. I feel like Stellaris is actually the most approachable of the Paradox grand strategy games, kind of in the way that Uwe described, because it's possible to kind of get started and spend a decent amount of time kind of figuring stuff out before you run into other groups and become potentially in trouble. So I, recommend it highly. I think it's great. And they put it on sale like once every 2 months for something like $5.
Is it Mac friendly?
Maybe. I don't know. That's never been a question I've had to ask. I've always had an actual computer.
Duce, I will get you a license so that you can play it for free. I'll get you a full license to play the game, and you can try it.
Yeah, but Uwe, remember, I've got
tell people how you like it.
But I've got limited focusability.
Brain cells.
Oh, there goes a red squirrel.
Limited brain cells.
No. I would guess you could have fun, maybe not. You can just you can start and just have fun.
When you said D&D, I would be so into it. You build your character. Is there character building in this in a different way?
It's not a character. You're building your empire.
Right, exactly. So your empire is your character.
Yeah, you could make a little monkey race like you. That is like, exactly with your.
There is a Mac version, by the way.
I'm interested because since I've heard the Stellaris thing from Academy Games, I don't know why it's stuck in my head, and it's like I gotta see what the hell this is all about.
I'll send you a key tomorrow.
But the thing is, Uwe, it was interesting because it was you, because you and Gunther and all that, you guys are crazy a bit. You're like mad scientists. You take 20 years, but then you come out with a product and it's like, ooh.
Yeah, see, Dan has a Mac, but instead of the Apple symbol on the cover, it says stolen from the library of Carl Parody. So,
actually, he offered me one.
I know he did. That's why I'm making the joke.
Ah.
Because Carl is a stand-up guy. Just so you know, I got to get this out of here.
Star Trek. Yes, Star Trek. I am waiting for the movie of Red Rising.
I did order the stamp.
Oh, nice.
So it's in
Jesus,
the inside
Ardy, where do you get all this cash?
That was only like $15 actually.
Yeah, 15 American.
Well, yeah, that's like $2.6 million Canadian, I believe. It's a recurring joke made at Dan's expense on a weekly basis.
I hung around with
literally
Uwe
Dan's expense because we charge
point.
Dan $2 every time we make the joke.
I hung around with Uwe a little bit. We were having supper or something, and he said he was telling a story about when he was crossing the border and you had your gun and a bullet fell down from your pocket.
I had no gun. They just found a bullet. There's a difference.
That was hilarious.
It was actually, when the border puts me in one room, my wife in another, and has a dog going through my car. And my only excuse is the Canadians are going, you have a bullet in your car. And I go, it can happen,
That was hilarious.
I just
you don't understand. Down here in Ohio, there are bullets everywhere.
Well,
Jesus Christ.
I did not know afterwards, after they let us go, they go, well, you have to realize Ohio is a major importer of illegal weapons into Canada. So,
really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I
had no reason to know that whatsoever.
I didn't know either. I went through anyway.
I'm Canadian, and you're telling the Canadian border guard as a bullet falls down, come on.
No, it didn't fall down. It was in some little thing. It was only a 9mm. It was nothing.
That was only a 9mm. Oh, Christ, that's funny.
We have all the different kinds of bullets are everywhere.
Christ, that's funny.
I don't know if you knew that. So.
That's funny, Uwe.
Well, you're right. I probably have in my room.
It's a bullet.
It's not like we're in Detroit, obviously.
Here, look it. I've got a baggie of different 45, 22s, 9mm.
What the hell do you doing with a baggie of bullets?
This is Ohio. I told you bullets are everywhere. There's more bullets.
I got a baggie of weed.
Don't put that on camera. We'll get demonetized again.
Oh, Christ. So he puts a bullet
that's
on
illegal here in Ohio. All the bullets you want, but no weed.
Jesus Christ.
Oh, and sports betting. We have sports betting here in Ohio now, as the constant ads remind me for sports betting. I'm so glad to see that. All right, folks.
Doug said, that she seemed offended when he came through and said he didn't have any guns. Nice.
How un-American of you to not try and carry guns over the Canadian border.
But you killed me.
All right, folks.
Started because the lady said, do you have any guns? And when I was going through, my wife had just woken me up. It was raining. It was near Niagara. And I go, on me or do I have guns like at home? And she goes, well, both. I go, not on me. She goes, well, what kind of guns do you have at home? I go, are you talking pistols, rifles? And she goes, you have more than one? And I'm like,
we're Americans, lady.
Jesus Christ.
you need one for groundhog? I mean, come on, give me a break, you know? That started it.
I think
You're lucky
the
they didn't
Canadian
call the
border guard
RCMP
might have
on
been
you,
having
man.
some fun with you, actually.
What do you mean?
Thinking
What
about
kind of guns? You're talking about what? A 9mm, a bazooka?
Bazookas, I'm pretty sure, are legal here in Ohio, but I haven't checked up on
you
the
can get a
current
bazooka
statutory
in the
requirements
States.
to get a bazooka.
Did any of the listeners see that? No, don't give me the face of American domestic terrorism. Bullshit. I am as 100% for law and order and all that. I just go walking with my dog every night. We've got coyotes out there. My nearest neighbor to my house is a mile away. So,
yeah, but that's Stigler. He's a ball buster.
okay, because
That's true.
I am so against these morons now. where they're
Yes.
saying in Ohio, you don't even need to test for a license. Anybody who's got any type of mental issues or anything, there should be such strict laws. You know, the problem is people want the freedom going too far. And then
I'm sorry I brought it up.
It's like calling me a Nazi. It's a bad thing to say.
No, it is.
Sorry I
But
brought it up.
Stigler is just pulling your leg here. I can attest to that. All right, folks. I'd like to thank Uwe for coming tonight and putting up with us and our weekly bullshit. I'd like to thank Dan for blowing his nose on camera. And I'd like to thank all of you fine folks for tuning in. So tune in next week to Dan's channel, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time on Tuesday. Once again, it's been a great time. Everybody have a great night.
Big move. Big. The moose is loose. Big moves. Big. The moose is loose.